Hey, everybody, welcome back. Craig Schaup here with George Thomas, our film critic, who is one of the few, I guess, not maybe few, but one of the blessed few that has seen the Odyssey. He is here to talk about it. George, how are you doing?
Blessed few. You're only saying that because they kept most of the influencers out. So
They
I,
did. They did
I
do
actually
that.
feel privileged again. So there we
Yeah.
go. I
Well,
am
you
fine. How
were,
are you?
I'm doing great. Obviously, it's Christopher Nolan week. It's been a few years now since we last saw him with Oppenheimer, which was a perfect storm of box office Oscar success. He won his first directing Oscar. Obviously, there's a lot of hype. He sticks with Universal here. He gets unlimited funds to film the Odyssey in only IMAX cameras. Like, this is legitimate IMAX movie. This is not a shot for IMAX. This is not a few IMAX sequences like he's had with Interstellar, The Dark Knight, some of his other movies. The entire movie is in IMAX, so there is a lot of hype for this. A lot of the IMAX shows are already sold out. The 70 millimeter shows are also sold out. I'm lucky to be in the Middle Tennessee area because we have one of the few IMAX 70 millimeter screens.
Oh, shut up.
One that he actually oversaw the retrofitting of 3 years ago for Oppenheimer. So we've got a little Christopher Nolan Middle Tennessee connection here. But he's back with the Odyssey after a very salivating wait for a lot of Nolan fans waiting for this movie. They've pined over this movie. I actually thought when this movie was announced, I kind of thought, I figured he would stay in his realm of originality, Interstellar, Inception, Dunkirk, movies that he kind of, built out from scratch. Now, Oppenheimer was adapted, obviously, but, an original biopic. But here he goes into something, almost 3,000 years old of literature for Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey.
Wait a minute. 2,800
Okay.
year old play or 2,800-year-old poem isn't original.
Well, no, it's original, but
No,
I figured,
he's gonna get
you
an
know,
adapted screenplay nomination this year. But go
yeah.
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I guess my thought was, maybe not going to something like adapted. Maybe he would stick in his, hey, I did Tenet, I did Interstellar, I did Inception. I've done these movies that I just kind of create from scratch, or whatever it may be. Here he is, he's adapting something, some of the oldest writings that we have access to at this point. Now, granted, I'm going to say this first and foremost. I am a huge Greek mythology fan, so I was also excited about this possibility of Christopher Nolan bringing the Odyssey to the big screen. Now, of course, I'm a fan more of the Iliad than the Odyssey, but I understand his choice here for the Odyssey. But you've seen it. Tell me about your thoughts on the Odyssey.
Well, first of all, I'm going to cop to not having read the Odyssey in high school like I should have. They
Okay.
had these little thing called Cliff's Notes. So
Right.
I cheated.
You cheated on the Odyssey. Okay.
Yes, I did.
All right, that's
But
fine.
in a nutshell, it the story of Odysseus and his trials and tribulations after the Trojan War.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this little thing called the Trojan horse involved. For those who don't know where that came from, that term came from. It came
Yeah,
from Greek mythology.
it did.
And he fights the Trojan War for 10 years, finally wins it. Him and his men finally win it, courtesy of using a Trojan horse
Yep.
to sneak into the city of Troy. And that war takes 10 years. He spends the next 10 years trying to get back home to Ithaca.
Yeah.
And he took the mission to fight the Trojan War, and knowing he possibly would not come home. In fact, he tells his wife Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway, he wasn't certain he would ever be back home.
Right.
And it follows his journey, and they basically skip over the first 10 years to get into the heart of the journey.
Right.
Those previous 10 years are told through flashbacks, and it's a clever way to do it. And I'll explain why and the reason. That it deals primarily with the second 10 years. Now,
Right.
mind you, in his ensuing departure, there are just a bunch of vultures hanging out in his palace, his crib,
Yeah.
waiting for his wife to choose one of them to marry. And unfortunately for Penelope, she's been ordered to choose one because it's clear after 20 years, Odysseus isn't coming home,
Right.
at least to the powers above him. She's delaying it as much as possible. She's got to deal with these just slimy guys led by Robert Pattinson,
Yep.
who's played a slimy guy or two in his career.
Yeah.
And all the while her son, Meculus, I think is
Yep.
how you pronounce it, played by Tom Holland, never knew his father, but is loyal to a fault to his
Right.
memory, courtesy of his mother. He sees what's happening. He understands that eventually she's going to have to choose, so he sets out to find her. Now, find Odysseus. Now, what's clever about this is Nolan, who wrote the screenplay, sets it up as a dual journey.
Yeah.
And it's a journey involving father and son, and they're both in the process of discovering who they are. His son as a young man / warrior with expectations, but Odysseus, because he's been through war, and it's you go through something like that, you kill women, you kill children, it changes you. And
Right.
in that regard, it's probably good that he didn't return home right away.
Right.
Get back home, he has to endure a number of challenges. Him and his men face a cyclops. They face a witch who's played wonderfully, amazingly by Samantha Morton. And for those who don't remember Samantha Morton, she was positively unreal in The Minority Report as one of the precogs.
She was chilling. Like,
yes, she
talking
was.
about it right now sends a shiver down my spine. She was so eerily chilling in that movie. Yeah.
And she's incredibly chilling here. I can see why Nolan cast her. It's like, and apparently on the set, she got standing ovations for her performance from her colleagues. So there we go.
Right.
And, it all climaxes in a kind of obvious way. I don't care. Because what Nolan does is he builds the anticipation of that climax brilliantly. Now, you mentioned him going back to original material. This movie harkens back to, some might argue that the Batman trilogy all three of those films were epics. Maybe, but it reminded me in scope of Dunkirk.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of that way. But further still, it's clear that Christopher Nolan is a director who is well-versed in cinematic history, because you look at this movie and it's reminiscent of Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
Because in that movie, Moses goes on a journey of self-discovery. And in scope, at the time, that movie, it looks a little dated now, but it still stands up. That movie was state-of-the-art, and it was a masterpiece. I consider it a masterpiece still. Yeah. And he pays homage to that. By the same token, it works on so many levels. There's a subtext that comments on modern day issues, misogyny, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just well made, well acted, and I Samantha Morton just blew me away. She really did. Matt Damon gives his best performances in a while. He's been producing mainly. He dusts off his chops.
Yeah.
He's very compelling as Odysseus. Anne Hathaway, ooh, pure strength, pure absolute strength. It's just a great movie. See it. You need to see it in IMAX. You really do. It will blow you away.
Now you saw it in IMAX, correct? Because I know you had that. You've
not
talked about
70
IMAX.
millimeter,
Yeah,
but saw it in IMAX. Yes.
Yeah. You talk about the scale and the scope. I mean, they really don't make movies like this anymore because when you've got to harken back to, the 10 Commandments, which, like you said, is a great film, but it's also, nearly 100 years old. It's getting close.
The first one is about 100 years old.
Yeah.
He redid it. I'm talking the 1956 version.
Oh,
so
okay.
That version is 70 years old.
Right. So this, we're talking decades old. And, obviously I know you mentioned Dunkirk, but Dunkirk was really like a self-contained epic in a way where it was, it was like an hour and 45 minutes. It wasn't like what you've seen Nolan do a lot of. Really, kind of a straightforward. Now the narrative was obviously disjointed, which we know Nolan loves to do, but it's really like, this is like swords and sandals, old school, Spartacus type stuff that we just don't see. And that was one of the reasons why I was excited, because I love Greek mythology, but we don't really see a lot of Greek mythology put, especially cinematically, on screen. The last major action movie that I can think of was probably Immortals, and that was 2011. You had Troy, of course, which, was the Iliad, and that was in 2004, and Wolfgang Peterson, I thought, did a solid job with it. Now it's maybe not amazing on rewatch, and it's definitely, has its warts, but it kind of reminds you of some of those old school Hollywood epics that you just don't see anymore. And then I think what makes this in that epic category is not just the swords and sandals style, but you're talking about, pushing the limits of filmmaking too. I mean, this is all shot in IMAX, which no one has dared to do, and even Christopher Nolan hasn't done up until this point. Now, obviously, out of all the IMAX films out there, he's probably maybe the most prevalent for some of the work he's done with The Dark Knight, which I saw in IMAX in Ypsilanti, Michigan when I was in college, and was my first movie experience in IMAX, which was amazing. Another one of my favorite cinematic features, or cinematic experiences, my wife and I went to see Interstellar in IMAX in Columbus when that came out. And, so he's like an event filmmaker, and he's been that way now probably, in my opinion, since, Batman Begins in 2005, but certainly at least since The Dark Knight. And it just seems like Nolan has entered the rarefied territory at this point. He got the validation with the Oscar with Oppenheimer. He's been making banger movies one after another. And even when he doesn't, like, for me anyway, when he doesn't like hit a home run, he still hits like off the wall triple here, because he's really a skilled filmmaker. And like you pointed out, he's the kind of filmmaker that really understands the history of cinema, and he wants to contribute to that history, and he wants to honor that history as well.
You mentioned he's in a company where, and I've always said this about Spielberg. If his worst movie is 1941 or Amistad, it's still better than 99% of filmmakers out there. If Nolan gives us a bad movie, it will still be better than 99% of filmmakers out there. This isn't that, though.
Right. And that's the funny thing, because before we got on a little bit ago, I was thinking about my rankings of Nolan movies, and like I just did the top 10. I have not seen Following, his original debut film. I have not seen that. But the worst movie that did not make his top 10 was The Dark Knight Rises, which I still think is a very good movie. And I thought to myself, when I was going 10-1, I had Tenet at 10, Memento at 9, The Prestige at 8, Insomnia at 7, and then Dunkirk at 6. That's how much his filmography is just so deep. In all of those movies, I give 3.5 stars or better. I had Batman Begins at number 5. I really love Batman Begins, and I think I love it mostly because it really kicks off a Batman franchise that we never knew could exist. Like, we saw the Burton stuff, which was very German impressionism. It was very gothic looking, but it was kind of hokey in a way. And then here we get like a grounded Batman story with Batman Begins. So I actually almost prefer it over The Dark Knight, although I do have The Dark Knight ranked over it. But then I had like Inception at 4, The Dark Knight at 3, Oppenheimer at 2, and then my favorite is Interstellar, even though I will argue that Oppenheimer is his best made film up to this point.
Fair enough. But you were talking about Batman Begins. Here, true story. I did the junket for that.
Okay.
Did interviews for that, right? And the reception to that was cool. Very cool by the junket press. And I think I don't remember what his Rotten Tomatoes score was, but I was the only one enthusiastic about it because I saw what he was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody who did that junket, who was on that press junket, all they could talk about, well, it's not Burton's Batman. And I tried telling a couple of them, that's the point.
Yeah, and it was better. It was better than Burton. I don't care what anybody said. Like, I understand the Burton movies have their place, but I mean, Batman Begins was such a grounded in realism film, in an origin story, a coming of age story in a lot of ways for Bruce Wayne. And I mean, I would say too that, and kudos to Cillian Murphy, but making a villain like the Scarecrow be menacing and ominous is not an easy task. Like, the Scarecrow is really the central villain. Now, he's not the deeper villain in that. Obviously, Ra's al Ghul is, but the Scarecrow was the one that was consistently presented on screen there. And he made the Scarecrow scary in a lot of ways, very body horror, very horrific looking, images in that. And, again, kudos to Cillian Murphy for that, but also for Nolan to really understand, like, you can drop these weird, eccentric characters into a real crime drama. And then, of course, he did that tenfold, even maybe with The Dark Knight, because you get the most eccentric Batman villain, which is the Joker. You put some realism on it, and everybody plays it straight. And then you've got one of the great crime epics of the 21st century.
Here you go. The mainstream critics made up for the junket press.
Okay.
Rotten Tomatoes score is 85%.
Yeah.
I'd go higher, but that's just me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I gave Batman Begins 4 stars. I loved it. I still think it holds up. And like I said, there are days where I would even prefer it over The Dark Knight because it's such a real, like, surprise. Like, after watching Batman Begins, you kind of expected The Dark Knight to be great because that the footing was there for something. But in 2005, you had no clue that a Batman movie could be that. Like, you had no idea that a universe like that could exist the way it did. And look at what we've seen in superhero genre since then, where you try to mimic it, but it's not. The cadence, you just don't know the notes to it. You know what I mean?
His Batman trilogy is the gold standard in superhero films, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
and that includes. I consider Iron Man the best in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I agree.
But that is even over Iron Man. So there we go.
Yeah.
I like the first.
Well, because they made 3, because he made 3 either great or really good movies, whereas Iron Man 1 was great. Step down for Iron Man 2, and then number 3 was sort of a step in the right direction, but nowhere near the overall totality of quality that you would get in the Batman in the Dark Knight franchise. So, I mean, I'm a Nolan fan. Now, I know we did this kind of last year when PTA came back out with his great filmography, a very similar director in terms of great filmographies. Where do you rank the Odyssey in your Christopher Nolan, filmography? What do you have in your top at the Christopher Nolan filmography?
You know what? I would probably... See, that's tough after seeing this movie. It really is, because I haven't seen Interstellar probably in 10 years.
Yeah.
I want to go back and revisit that. If I'm ranking, it's probably I loved Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
I really do, and it's hard to
I
go
did too.
against that one. Oppenheimer, I would go Batman Begins.
Okay, yeah, I love it. I love that.
The Dark Knight. See, I like the Prestige too.
I really like the Prestige too. And I think in my ranking, I had it like eighth on my list. But honestly, anything outside of Dunkirk, I think that 7, 8, 9, 10 interchangeable for me.
Fair
And,
enough.
and maybe if I watch the Prestige again, it's been a while, but it was kind of a weird year. That came out the same year as The Illusionist, so you had like two magician movies that
Yep.
were kind of fighting in that season. But yeah, I mean, Nolan, even when he's kind of like all over the place, like Tenet was to me. I mean, to him it probably makes sense, but to a lot of us, it's still kind of over our head. Even
When he's all
though
over the place, he's still interesting.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's the point about Tenet. It was like, okay, this is if you don't want me to make a James Bond movie, I'm going to go make my own James Bond movie, and it's going to be really weird because you're not going to know anything that's really happening from scene to scene. But he does so many things in a way where you can tell he really values live sets. He values special effects to a degree, but special effects in ones that are created by man, not necessarily on the computer. And I think that's where he's best at. He's able to get the budget. And look, I guess when you're given 250 million, you're giving a cast of Oscar winners, Oscar nominees, probably future Oscar winners and nominees. You probably expect the Odyssey to be, checking off all the boxes, but in worse hands, you never know what that movie could turn out to be. It could be a hokey, how do we incorporate Greek mythology into cinema, because it's been challenging for so many years now to really put the best foot forward on Greek mythology in film.
And again, harkening back to Cecil B. DeMille, he could have done that with the Ten Commandments. And in my review, one comparison I made, there is, let's call it a Moses moment in the Odyssey, that anyone who's seen the Ten Commandments will recognize, I guess. He's not cribbing from it, but what he does so brilliantly is he builds up to the moment.
Yeah.
And in the Ten Commandments, it's when Moses reveals himself to Pharaoh after wandering in the desert all those years. And that scene makes the hair on the back of my neck, even today, and mind you, that's a movie I would watch every Easter into my 30s.
Yeah.
And every time that happened, every time I saw that scene, hair on the back of my neck, because it's done so well.
Yeah.
No one does the same thing.
Yeah.
In the Odyssey.
Well, I think, and obviously, it looks like it's trending to a nice little box office this weekend. Obviously, this is going to be a major awards contender. I know you mentioned some of that. Do you think this is a player for? I know Nolan just won for Oppenheimer. It's not uncommon for directors to win in spurts. I mean, Alejandro González Iñárritu won back to back.
I was just going to say that.
So, but then again, he also has a movie coming out this year, which looks
Digger.
Very interesting. I don't know if you've seen the trailer yet. Digger.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen the trailer yet, but
I have not.
It's like Dr. Strangelove vibes all over in that satire. I'm very excited about Digger. Okay, so do you think Nolan? Obviously, I think he'll be in Best Director, but because I think when the skill is at this level as a filmmaker, you have to honor it, and especially now too, when the response has been so positive and universal acclaim, I think you have to give him a nod, even if he doesn't have a chance to win, or maybe comes up short.
As always, I couch it in "This is the summer."
Yeah,
we don't know what's coming out except Digger, so we shall see. But I don't see how this is a film that could be ignored in any form or fashion. The other movies are really going to have to blow me away.
Yeah.
Come the fall for me to forget this one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously, it goes without saying an A- rating from you. I read your review. Obviously, you got to go see this in the biggest screen possible, whether it's IMAX 70 millimeter, Dolby Digital, whatever you can see it in, see this movie. I'm sure that there will be plenty of people that will see this. Transitioning into the going to the prairie here for this next one. Little House on the Prairie returns after decades on the shelf, I suppose, as they are rebooting it on Netflix. Tell us about this one.
I'm a child of the 70s.
Okay.
I remember when a friend of my mother's was telling, and she was a Caucasian woman, good friend, telling my mother how we needed to watch Little House. Me and my brother needed to watch Little House on the Prairie.
Okay.
And it's like, watched it once, didn't speak to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and back then, there wasn't a lot that spoke to a black kid growing up in Cleveland in the 70s and suburban Cleveland in the 80s. It just wasn't. I mean, that's what is meant by representation. You get to see yourself in some of these stories. You get to have your stories told. So, Michael Landon, wholesome dad guy, and that original series is remembered for that. It was sanitized.
Right.
There was no sense of reality, which is, let's try this. It was idealized and sanitized. I can't say there was no sense of a reality. But what's curious to me about the backlash related to this remake, is that it's woke.
Yeah.
And all I could think upon reading all this criticism was, no, they're just putting people back in who were basically taken out, who were forgotten about or afterthoughts. And in the new series, one thing I can appreciate is the fact that there are significant, the town doctor in Independence, Missouri is black.
Right.
There's a native indigenous family that's obviously going to be centered in some respect. And, whether or not a lot of people want to admit it, America was a mosaic to some degree back then.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I appreciate about the series. You get the impression that where it's headed. How much did you watch?
I have not seen any of it.
Okay. You get the impression, I've watched 3 episodes, that Pi Ingalls, Charles, isn't he's a great father. Mm-hmm. He's not as savvy as Michael Landon's Charles Ingalls was. Okay. Now, I remember in that series, everything being the fault of something or someone else, not Charles Ingalls. It doesn't appear that that's going to be skirted in here, because there are allusions to mistakes that have been made, bridges that have been burned, and all this stuff. And I'm sure it'll get into it down the line. But the first 3 episodes I saw, I really enjoyed, and I appreciate what the creator, and I can't remember her name right now, has done with it so far. We'll see where it goes.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned, and we didn't really discuss it with the Odyssey, but there was a lot of, for whatever reason, groundswell of wokeness with Lupita Nyong'o, Elliot Page being involved in the cast, and everybody was, for some reason, thinking that Elliot Page was playing Achilles, even though that has proven to be false. And then Lupita Nyong'o is Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman in the world. How could she be it? And I'm like, well, I mean, have you seen her? She's a pretty good-looking woman, and in Hollywood standards, she is still pretty damn good-looking. So I figured it's just people wanting to yell at the clouds all the time. Not to mention the fact that the Odyssey is literally mythology, and it really does not matter who inhabits these characters when you think about it, because these characters aren't real. They're myth. They're Greek myth. I mean, obviously, I'm sure that there would be backlash with Matt Damon being Odysseus then. And, why isn't it some Greek warrior guy that looks like he's, He-Man basically?
But you notice there isn't.
Yeah. So what does it matter? No one cared about the white guy playing Odysseus, who is literally from Boston, Massachusetts. No one cared about that. No one cares about Anne Hathaway as Penelope. So let's just move on from that. But it's funny that you bring up the Little House on the Prairie, wokeness. And it seems like it's just, I guess the biggest answer would be if you don't like it, then just go watch the 1970s version and you will probably be satisfied by what you see on screen, I'm guessing. Seeing a few characters of a different color on your screen I just don't understand why people get all, I don't understand it, George. I don't understand that they can't comprehend a black man being a doctor in any part of the world so what it is what it is. But it doesn't sound like it should really be, it's much ado about nothing, but obviously people have made much ado about it. So, but it's a good representation for what we should look at in today's world. I mean, this is, even if it's being set in the 1900s or the 1800s or wherever, there's still representation of other people that inhabited the world that is being lived in. So why not represent that on screen?
Because it's triggering,
I guess. But you're actually saying though that Little House on the Prairie on Netflix is worth a watch though after the first 3 episodes.
I would take a look at it and then judge for yourself after that. I mean, will I go back to it? It depends on how my summer goes. But what I saw, sure. I enjoyed.
Okay. All right. Well, I know next week is a light week for the film release schedule, obviously with the Odyssey getting a couple of weeks here to dominate the box office before Spider-Man. Do you have anything streaming or anything that's on the horizon for next week?
Ride or Die with Hannah Waddingham and
Octavia Spencer.
Yes, Oscar winner. I forget her name. That's embarrassing. There's a second season of the it's not new if it has a second season, animated Batman series on Prime.
Okay.
And there's Stewart Fails to Save the Universe out of the Big Bang Theory universe.
Yeah. Are you a Big Bang Theory fan? Were you a Big Bang Theory fan?
You know what? Found it in its second season.
Okay.
When sitcoms are TV series are weird. They're all those in the network system. You're signed to a 7-year contract, and generally the series, when they run long, tend to get weird in that 7th year. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I was there up until season 6, maybe 7.
Okay.
I dropped off for 2 or 3 years, and actually I dropped off for the rest of the run. And then once it hit reruns, and mind you, TBS is the Big Bang Theory Fringe channel at this point.
Yes.
Now I'll put it on as background, and so I've seen every episode, and those final couple seasons are a bit, but up until season, I think it ran for 12 years, so let's go at season 10.
Yeah,
it still had something going for it.
Yeah,
and the series finale was absolutely, not devastating, but it was emotionally resonant.
It was. It really, and like you said, I think when you're talking about sitcoms, especially, when you're running for 12 seasons and you're running 22 to 24 episodes a season, there's going to be some staleness just because it has to happen. I mean, it's hard to be, putting out banger episodes every week when you're talking about 24 weeks out of the year for 12 years. So, yeah, I mean, there are some episodes that are better than others. Obviously, you and I being, pop culture fanatics, we probably appreciate some of the pop culture jokes a little bit more than, say, my wife would know about like Indiana Jones or something like that or whatever. But still, I think there's, my wife loves the show. We've watched it a couple of times. I actually watched it all the way through on HBO Max a couple of times. So obviously we enjoyed it. It's good, like I think you said, for like background, noise, and every now and then looking up and catching one of the jokes or catching one of the sequences. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what they do here. Stuart Bloom obviously is a comic book store owner who always was hanging on by a thread in the Big Bang Theory, so it'll be interesting to see what they do in obviously a very truncated episodic show with him.
Yeah, and the interesting part is he tested for the role of Leonard originally.
He did.
There you go.
And I think didn't he almost get the role of Wolowitz too? And I think or maybe it was, I think he was actually up for Wolowitz too, and he ended up not getting that, obviously, but he ended up getting a good recurring role, and now he's got his own show here. Now I don't know if they'll be adding in some of the Big Bang Theory cast. Obviously, I know they have a few like Brian Posehn and some others, but obviously some of those pedigree names from the cast, not sure if they'll be making an appearance there, but
I can't
either
tell.
Way, which is another way of saying you already know, but
I know. And mind you, I watched there are 10 episodes. It's an easy watch. I will say I watched all 10 in 2 days.
Okay. All right. So that sounds good. We'll talk more next week about that. As always, George, we appreciate your time. Are you going to go see the Odyssey again this weekend on your own, or you plan on checking it out again?
Possibly, but it's like not this weekend, because I've got a birthday party for a nephew, a anniversary party for the bar I used to be a norm-like regular at.
Okay.
And I suspect Sunday I'll be recovering, and we're in the process of packing up stuff for a home renovation. So
okay. All right. Well,
we'll see.
Well, if you ever need to get away, you can always drive down to Nashville, and we've got the IMAX 70mm, man.
That's what my son is doing. He drove to Indianapolis for their 70mm, and and this is how hyped the film was. He bought his tickets a year ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember they went on sale, and before you could even like sneeze here in Nashville, the 70mm screenings were already booked at, because at that time, I think they only had like a 7:00 show or whatever it was. So at the time, it's like, good luck. So then you had to wait and wait and wait. And I'm telling you, I've looked at the tickets. I mean, most of the show times, and I think they even have as early as a 7 a.m., all of the show times are basically booked up in IMAX 70mm here in Nashville. And they have like I think they have 4 shows. Like, I think they have 7, 11, maybe they have 5, because I think they have 7, 11, 3, and then 7, and then 11 o'clock at night. So it is a tough ticket to get, my friend. But if you're ever willing to, come on down. We can go to the movies.
Yeah, I don't mess with the South anymore, man.
I don't blame you. I've seen Sinners, man. I know what you're talking about.
Did you see that list Tennessee made?
What's that?
You see the list that Tennessee made?
I did, yeah. The worst place to live. I mean, CNBC needs to probably reevaluate, because we don't have income tax. I mean, it's fairly nice year round at this point. I mean, there's like 2 months out of the year where you're going to get some bad weather, but other than that, come on.
Yeah, I don't.
Are we really worse than like Wyoming or Montana or the Dakotas, or
I don't know.
Come on. I don't know about that, but
I don't mess with the South in general principle. I spent outside of Orlando, Florida. I've spent enough time in New Orleans, maybe Atlanta, but I've spent enough time in places like Alabama to say, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I understand.
Alabama made that list too. Yeah. Although I'm surprised it was ranked low or
ahead of or better than Tennessee, I suppose. Yeah.
So I'm not going to go to my Alabama rant, but there we go.
All right, my friend. We will talk again real soon. You have a great time at the movies and watching things at home. We appreciate you always, and we will talk again next week.
All right, dude. Later.